Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes, like 1 or 2 more minutes, and start the webinar then. Yeah, welcome everybody. First of all, seeing a lot of names I do recognize, a lot of names I do not necessarily know about, but that's always a great thing, in my opinion. Yeah, so everybody that is new, we're gonna take a look at one of our latest updates today. And this webinar today is in English because of the majority of our user base is speaking English and not everybody is speaking German. If you are having problems understanding everything, just let us know. We are very happy to give you like a demo of the webinar, version of the webinar in German as well later on. Other than that, the recording of today's webinar will be sent around as a link. So just to let you know, the entire meeting is being recorded. If you don't want your name to come up or don't want your personal information anywhere, just change your name. Switch off your camera, change your name to whatever, so that nobody recognizes you in the recording. Yeah. It's 2 minutes past 4 now, so I think we're gonna start because if people are joining later, the recording is sent around anyway, so everybody can watch the first couple of minutes if they want to afterwards. So yes, thank you very much for attending today, and welcome to the latest webinar. This time I'm going to talk about the latest, one of the latest updates inside our suite, which is all about the query field, the query block, and the search blocks, I would say. So what are we going to take a look at today? So the first thing we're going to take a look at is how you can set up a live search pretty much everywhere. So what this does for you, so for example, you can build something like this, where your users can just instantly search for posts, custom post types inside the header in a pop-up, or you can build something like usually on a search page, you can use that to maybe have additional capabilities. And you can not only do this on a search result page, which you usually always could, but also on pretty much every page you want to use this. So that's the first thing we're going to take a look at how this works. And then we have some new features as well. So those are already new features, but we have new blocks as well. So we're going to take a new look at new filter options that we have, and a new date picker block that came with the latest update. And last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit more about the setup and things that are working under the hood. So it's now called the post slider block, and why we built this, what is different. And actually, there are some more features in there as well, hidden in there that you do not see at the first glance, maybe, not necessarily at least. So yeah, wanted to let you know, just again, if anybody joined after I said this, we're gonna record this meeting, so it's already recorded, but it's gonna be cut. And if you don't want your name to be recognized in the recording, then just change your name, switch off your camera, whatever. And if you have any questions, feel free to note them down in the chat, and I will tackle the questions after the webinar, but you can also just unmute yourself or maybe say a few words about yourself and then ask questions after I went through all the capabilities, and then we can jump back into the examples and you can ask questions about that. Maybe we can switch things up and I can show you how to do this and what your specific question is about. So yes, let's get started. So let's take a look at how live search is built everywhere, how you can build this everywhere. So I prepared some examples. And the first one we're going to take a look at is this old setup. So before the latest update, you could always do something like this. So you have some posts in a query loop highlighted here. That does not necessarily look too fancy. And you could let your user filter these based on different categories. but this included all the taxonomies inside the post setup. So this is not necessarily something that is very flexible and not necessarily something you wanted. And on the other hand, you could always go into the search results page. And if you enable a live search feature, your users can actually filter a lot more. So you can type something in here and the search results will automatically be filtered, or they can select pretty similar to what you've seen before, or select alphabetic sort the posts by different sorting capabilities. And we wanted to merge those two features and actually add a lot more capabilities. So let's take a look at how you could build this on pretty much every site you want to. Could be in a sidebar, could be on a page, could be in a post, wherever you want to. So this is actually just a default, pretty default page. So it's actually a page, so a post of the post type page, and just called blog. So I didn't really necessarily include anything fancy. I have the one of the main patterns from our theme in here, where you can see the latest post displayed in here. So what I want to do now, the easiest way to get the live search capabilities inside your page is just type / and then live search. And this gives you all the new features in just a basic wrapper. So it includes a query loop. And inside this query loop, you can find the grid search block, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and the post slider block. And post slider block seems new. It is actually not necessarily new, but more on that later. And these two will now interact with each other. You got a little note in here about the query context. So this search will now interact live with the search results inside the query block. And those are the actual search results that are displayed in here. So the post slider, similar to the post template block before, just displays the latest post, displays the posts that are filtered in the query loop. So as soon as these two are next to each other, or like somewhere inside this query loop, those two will interact with each other. But I don't want to use this right now. I want to focus on this already existing query loop and making this live search. So you probably have some kind of query loop on your page and you want to give your users live filter capabilities. So the first thing I want to add inside my query loop, I want to add, let's add before, I want to add a grade search block. Let's add that. Let's make this little field, search field, a little bit wider, just so it looks a bit better. And let's save this. And we're going to take a look at the page. And if I type in anything, nothing really changes. Why? Because this search block by default just goes to the search page. If I click now, it goes to the search results page. This is pretty much the capability you had before. And why is that this way? Let's take a look at this page behind there. This is not interacting with the results, and it actually says it right here because this is just a core post template block. So by default, if you just include a query loop, the post template block will be included. And now we have all the capabilities that Grade adds to the post template block, most of them, in this post slider variation. So as soon as I make this a post slider, visually, nothing really changes because I can now enable more features, but I haven't enabled any. But now these two blocks do actually interact with each other. So if I refresh, you can see nothing really changed. But as soon as I type in something here, you can see this automatically updates these results. So for example, if I type in secure, you can see the post with the name word secure in it comes up. And this is the basic functionality of how this works. So as soon as a slider and a query search are inside a query block, so grade search and post slider inside the query block, they interact with each other. And this gives you all the flexibility inside the search blocks. So you can now go ahead and, for example, add the filter dropdown that you're used to, or add the sorting dropdown that you're used to, and go ahead. But I don't want to focus on those now because these two blocks have been around for a while. I want to showcase you the new blocks. So let's delete the submit button as well, because I don't really necessarily need it here because everything just updates as I type. Some users might still click this button, but it's not necessary anymore. So let's select the new filter buttons and chips block. So what this does, it gives the user the option to filter in a visual way. Instead of having a dropdown, you can actually just first select the taxonomy I want to filter by. So in this case, the most basic one, categories. And I can now set the design. So by default, those are radio buttons, but maybe I want them to be chips, for example. Chips is something that does look really nice and is a really common thing on web pages. Let's just refresh it. And instead of having to go to a dropdown and click and select a category here, users can already see, okay, those categories are in here, and I can easily just filter by them. So I can easily just highlight all my event posts, all my general posts, how-to, news, whatever I like. And I can add a lot more capabilities. For example, I can make it a multi-select. I can show the count of the actual posts that are filtered. So this gives my user a lot more information beforehand. So there are actually 3 events in here, and I can now select more of them and filter them all together. And if I want to deselect, I just click it again. So this is a new filter block. And a great thing about it, it does not only work on default query loop, you can also use it obviously on search result page, but you can also use it on an archive page, for example. So I included a taxonomy here, and the taxonomy is just named country. And I just included some, pretty much random countries: America, Brazil, France, Germany, Italy, and Korea. And actually, the great thing about this is this taxonomy behind here. So let's just take a look. Countries in here, America, Brazil, and all the taxonomies you have in here. They are a taxonomy that is used across post types. So for example, I have this post type movie that we will focus later on. And this has the same country taxonomy. So Korea, America, Interstellar is a movie made in America, The Untouchables is a movie made in France, and so on and so forth. In an archive page, the archive pages, the great thing is, the archive page of America shows all the posts that are linked to this America taxonomy, which can be movies like The Dark Knight, Inception, but can also be posts like my news post, top 10 web development trends. And if I now see this tabs block in here, this automatically filters live by different taxonomies. So inside an archive, I can utilize these filter blocks to let my user choose which archive they actually want to display. And let's take a look how this is built, because the setup is pretty much the same. Again, I have a query loop, I have a post slider block, and I have a great search block in there. And the great search block only includes the filter buttons and chips block. And it has the show count available, and it automatically inherits the default filter. So if I refresh this, you can see America is already active because we are actually watching the America archive template. So I can use this on archives, on normal pages to display different filters. So I can filter based on country in this example. And you can see that if I filter by France, you can see, again, the movies next to my default news post that I included here, and all the posts of different posts I've actually showcased in here. So this works even though I set the query loop to inherit actually the context of the query. This also works. Just to give you a little example of what is doable with this. So far about the filter and search block, the filter and button and chips block. But we added more capabilities into here as well. So the next thing we want to focus on is actually using the new date picker block as well. So if I go into this page, let's just close it here. If I go into this page, I can include a little block called date picker. Really simple block. Let's just type in date to add a label. And you can see in here how this looks by default. I have a lot of options in my sidebar. So by default, it filters the post date, which is usually what you want. You want your users to be able to filter by the date. So let's just save this and take a look at how this works. So now I have this date block, and I can select, for example, just the last 2 weeks, pretty much from 1st to 13th of August. And you can see only the last 2 posts that are actually posted in August are displayed here. Or I can go back to July, obviously, and just focus on the July post, and so on and so forth. It has a lot more capabilities around that. So for example, I can include ranges. So what this does for me, for example, I want maybe not the next. Let me select this week, next week, no, last week, this month, last month. Yes, go ahead. And you can see there, now I have a little preset picker here. So I easily can select this week and just pre-select all my dates, last week, this month, all the same. You get the point here. But one thing it does also offer is you can actually select what this filters. So by default, I mentioned it's filters a post date. So this is usually great when a user wants to just view all the posts of this year, all the posts of this month, like we did. But what if you have future events, for example? You have an event set up in December. If you use the post date in inside WordPress and set it to December, the post is not actually published, it's only scheduled. So for example, if I go into my post and set this to be like in December, you can see this is scheduled. This will not show up in a front-end search. It will not show up on your actual page. So let's change that back to August. So what you can use from that is, for example, a meta field. You can include a meta field of the type date and say, okay, the actual event date is in December, like in my example. And then you can let your user filter by the event date, which can be in the future. And this is the reason why we included, for example, let me go into the setup here, why we included ranges like next 7 days, next 30 days, last 30 days. You can actually select what type of information your user filters about. There are a lot more capabilities around there, the date format, placeholder, obviously all the design capabilities you know of, or secondary field, primary field, and with label, drop-down styles. Pretty much every design option here is can be customized. The default is always pretty much inherited by what you set up in the site editor. So this usually inherits your grayscale colors and what you set up inside the theme. And this is pretty much what the date picker is all about. And next up, I want to talk a little bit more about the functionalities you have in here to actually customize your layout. Because now, if you take a look at the blog page we created, this doesn't really look too nice. And if I even go to responsive breakpoints, you can see, okay, yeah, this behavior is okay-ish, but not really great. So let's focus on a capability that has always been there, but now is even more important, and that is custom layout. So by default, next to each other means they are all in the same row pretty much, similar to the row block, and custom layout now lets you include whatever block you like. So for example, we could go for a stack and just move everything inside the stack. And inside this, let's make the block spacing, customize the block spacing a bit more. And then I actually want my date picker to be next to my search fields. So let's make this a row and let's align this to the bottom, give this a label. And yeah, now we have a date picker next to the search term. Now we could go into the filter buttons and actually make them tabs. And we get a look like this. So now we can, for example, if you select this month, you can see you cannot actually read everything. So let's get back into this and make this a secondary field to highlight it a bit more and give this a 500 pixel width, for example. So now you can see you have a lot more space for this, and you have your categories below, and you can filter by them using just clicks, and you can see them really easily. And what you can also do, for example, if I want additional features, additional filters in here, I can now go ahead and, for example, add a popover block. And inside this popover block, let's call this more filters. And yeah, and show the popover. And inside this popover, we can actually go for another filter and chips. Filter buttons and chips block. And for example, we can now filter by country. So let's just save this. So I haven't really designed it pretty nicely, but the idea is now I can go in here and filter by term, and the user can actually filter by France or filter by Germany, Italy. You get the point. This is automatically updatable. You can hide a lot of the additional capabilities in here. So I can, for example, just move the filter and chips button of the tabs in here as well. Let's make them chips again. Save this. Yeah, and now you have additional features inside this post, inside this little popover, and you can hide the actual filter capabilities inside your popover. So this comes really similar to what you see on a lot of web pages. Obviously, you can now put the popover on the left-hand side or right-hand side to make it a sidebar, like popover, or from the bottom, a drawer. Pretty a lot of things you can do inside this are now enabled for you, and you can visually build your layout however you like to. And it automatically interacts with your post results wherever you want. Let's focus on a different example, and this is this little popover block, pretty similar to what you have seen now. But in this, we have one more feature included, which actually mimics kind of the live filter capability you see, live search capability you see on a lot of web pages. And this is you only see the actual results as soon as the user types anything. So let's take a look at how this is built. Again, similar setup. Let's just show the popover. And you can see in here, inside this popover, there's a query loop block, again. And in the query loop, there's a great search and there's the post slider. And these two do interact with each other. But the only thing I included in here as well is I enabled this checkbox, I toggle this checkbox to hide results until the search is triggered. And this does exactly what we've seen in the front end. It actually hides all the search results until somebody types in anything in here. And you can see something in here as well. Let's just select Parasite. So it gives you a really easy way to build the little search capabilities inside the popover, inside the footer, or wherever you want, without actually displaying the post results before the user actually typed anything. And what you have seen in here as well is this little message. And this looks really customized to this page. It's actually customized to this page because it says, okay, we could not find a movie for you. What about Parasite, this movie I suggest to you? So this is actually a functionality that the core offered for a while and we now properly support. So this is a reason as well why we did all this. We actually refactored the entire functionality that we enhance about the query loop and support most or all of the block capabilities that the core offers to you. So again, we take a look at how this is built. So you can see there's the query loop block, great search again, and the post slider. And of course, inside the great search, I can again include all the blocks. And there's the no results block. You probably might have seen this in the past, and it could have worked for you, could not have worked for you. So we actually probably support this now. So what I can do in this site, the no results block, is I can, for example, add a group and pretty much design everything in here, write a paragraph, include a headline that says no results, make this up there. And I can pretty much build every layout or display other posts that as soon as the user does not find a post, I can suggest them the latest posts or the most popular ones. And everything in here is displayed as soon as no results are found. So by default, we find it really important that the user is informed about what is actually going on, because otherwise the user would see nothing, no result, and would think, okay, this might be an error. And by default, before we included proper support for the no results block, let's delete it. You probably have seen something like this. So as soon as you type in anything, there's this default message that says no results found. And this couldn't really be customized except with the filter, which was always possible. But it could not really be customized. And we still find it really important that as soon as you really search something, that no results are actually displayed, and no results warning is actually displayed. It does not necessarily need to be displayed if it's a default query loop that it's not actually searched. But as soon as you type anything, you need this message. And you can customize this now using the core no results message. And you can also get rid of it. If I focus this and I just delete all the contents inside there, so I have the no results block and I leave it empty, now I get rid of this message entirely, which based on the use case can be something you want. So you can see nothing is rendered, so you can get rid of this message entirely. So by this, I showcased one of the examples why we did all this refactoring, and I want to dig deeper into this because this is like what is going on under the hood as well, and one of the reasons we did this. So I mentioned that this is a post slider block, and it's not a post template block necessarily. So by default, if you include a query loop, this was always a post template block. And in the old, before the update, this was always called post template, and doesn't matter how you inserted it. And it gave you all the capabilities that Gradle enabled you to use. For example, arrows on the side, pagination below, slider animations like fade, all the elements like pagination below, etc. And those are now bundled inside this post slider variation. So each and every query loop you built with Gradle before the update was already came already with all these capabilities, and will automatically be recognized and automatically be a post slider. But everything you did without Gradle will automatically be a post template block, and default query loops you insert will automatically be a post template block. Why did we move this to a variation? Because this actually enables a lot more compatibility with other third-party plugins, because we do not customize anything here. So this is the raw core experience, which has its pros, has its cons, just less capability at the end of the day. And for example, with one of the latest WordPress updates, it actually has this layout capability that you can not only select columns, but you can also select column widths, and the post slider block automatically supports that as well. And as soon as you switch to the post slider block, like in the beginning, nothing will really change in the front end, but now you have all the capabilities. One of the most important ones will be grid settings by breakpoint. So you can say, for example, on desktop, it will be 3 columns wide. On mobile, it will be 3 elements per page, and actually default columns width. So this is 3 in this case. And on mobile, it will be, on tablets, it will be 8 elements with 2 columns. And on mobile, it will be 4 elements with 1 column. So this is one of the most important capabilities. The slider elements you know about, the side arrows, the pagination feature, those are all included inside the slider block. So everything you knew about all the animation features, make it a slider with fade, slide animation, cover flow animation. And actually, we have one more new feature in here as well. That was requested a lot. So transition duration in milliseconds. For example, if I now include, let's go back to the blog page actually to really show you what I mean. So if I edit this page and I did include it, let's see how many items I included. Okay, let's make them 3. Just for this little demo purpose. And now I want to include side arrows. So this lets me choose the page and just navigate to the next page. And now I can customize the slide animation. So if I save this, you're now able as a user to switch to the next page without reloading. And if I select this transition duration, make it really long, then this slider animation is now customized, which wasn't possible before, only with a filter. Just a little detail of what we changed in here as well. So, and all the other old functionalities are still supported in here. You have the filter and sort capabilities as well, but these are now pretty much deprecated, because you can build everything that you could build with the filter functionality now by including the Gradle search inside the same query block, and you can pretty much have more flexibility about the same options that you used to have, the order capability as well. Those are both pretty much deprecated, still supported, so you can still use them, still will be recognized, but you now have a lot more flexibility with the search block, and you can filter live wherever you like. Let it be in a popover, let it be in a footer, let it be in a sidebar, let it be on a WooCommerce page, whatever you want. You can use our functionalities inside the search and filter the post results live for all of your users inside the front end. So yes, this was an overview of what is possible now with the latest updates. So you can include a live search everywhere. You have new front-end filter capabilities using the buttons and chips block. You have a new date picker block. You have a new post slider block that's actually not quite new, but a lot more capabilities like no results customization and the slider variation, where you can customize the animation length and a lot more. And yeah, this is a little overview of what is possible. And if you want to know more about how in detail set everything up, like set up the date picker block and all its options, which are a lot, You can check out the tutorials inside the Help Center. They're all updated, reflecting the latest stage, obviously. And yes, now I will be very happy to take questions, and thank you for your attendance so far, either live or on recording. And yeah, I hope we see each other in the next webinar. But for now, let's take a look at questions. So I'm going to take a look at the chat first, but if you want to add something or ask a question live, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask the question. Maybe just give a little bit of context of who you are and where you're coming from, and then everybody can understand your question a lot better. So Patrick, you asked a question. Let me read it out first. So one thing that I'm missing is a carousel or image gallery carousel block that is basically exactly the same as the query loop and post slider, but without the query functionality. Do you plan to publish something like this? I guess it could be a lot copy paste. I guess it could be a lot of copy paste. But besides that, amazing update. So thank you first for the question. Yes, we are. So a carousel, what is the difference between, for everybody to understand, and that I'm making sure that I understand your question correctly. So the difference between like a query loop slider block and a carousel is pretty much, actually, let me share it to make sure that everybody understands it. So if I include, let's go back to that blog page that I now messed up pretty bad. I need to get rid of this zoom bar. No worries. So let's take a look at this thing. So let's get rid of the interrogate search block. We don't necessarily need this for now. So let's focus on the slider variation. So for example, in here, I have paginations on the left and on the right. And actually, let's get rid of those because I don't need them for now, but I want to have, for example, a slider variation. Make it one item per page, for example, and make it one item as well. So we only see one item per page. And we now want to make this, for example, a loop with autoplay and slide this from the next slide. Actually, make it 3 again. 3 is a bit better to showcase what I'm really about. So yeah, publish this and take a look. So what this does now, based on the duration I've set, I'm not really sure. Yeah, you see, now it swaps to the next page automatically and kind of loops through it. But instead of a proper carousel would be something that just infinitely moves through. So all the elements are constantly moving from left to right, and just having, for example, a little logo wall of your recent customers that are included in your latest projects, and then just infinitely move through instead of just going from page to page. You can have a similar functionality. Let's get rid of this. A similar functionality if you go in here and say, okay, we have one item per page, like I've built before, like one item per page, and then just go inside the slider block and make this interval like 1 second or something like this, and make the transition a lot quicker. Let's save this. And this could be pretty similar to what you like to achieve, but you're always just seeing one item per page and not a constant movement, just this swap, swap, swap. And a carousel would be infinite movement. So we discussed this a lot as well. If we wanted to include this in this update already, we decided to not do it because it was kind of like a different use case. And the most complex things were getting like the user interface right and everything around that, because building this just for the front-end use, that is not too hard, but having like the user interface right and getting everything in there was a bit harder. So we decided to not include this in this update, but we are actually planning to integrate this in this year. So I hope this answers the question, and I hope everybody understands what I'm trying to tell here and what Patrick actually asked. So I hope, Patrick, this was actually what you've wanted to know. Hope this answers the question correctly. But this is the difference between carousel and what the slider offers right now. And yeah, we did not include this yet, but we want to include this in this year. Okay, so I'm Faton. I will jump to Patrick's answer because this gives a lot of context. Thank you. But do you also plan it so you don't have to include a custom post save so that the content of the carousel can be updated on the page edit? Ah, okay. So this is actually where your question is headed to. So you don't necessarily want to create a post type and highlight posts inside this carousel, but you want to actually have like yeah, just a group block, for example, where you have different tiles, different boxes, and then just infinite loop, or in your example, gallery images. So you have like an infinite gallery just moves around constantly. This is something that we're planning to do there as well, because those are two different things actually from a technical perspective. A lot of people are asking us about the capability um, around the slider block, like the query loop, and you are asking specifically about carousel without post slider capability, pretty much post query loop capabilities. Those are two different features, but in the end, the front end result should be pretty much the same. So that's one of the things I meant with saying the user interface needs to be done right, because we don't want to have two different user experience for pretty much getting the same result. Because in the front end, it should be the same. Yeah, like loop, you also have arrows to view around, also relevant for e-commerce sites, I guess, for product. Yeah, it's relevant for a lot of things, in my opinion. The carousel block is relevant for a lot of things. In general speaking, we're not the biggest fan of carousels and sliders. We plan to do this year, but we're not the greatest fan. Why? Because of accessibility reasons. Actually, post sliders and carousels in specific are not really accessible if done wrong. Even if done perfectly right, it's not the best solution. So instead of not showing something to your user by default and just it coming up during this animation, this will not be accessible for each and every user, because some of them maybe might have deactivated animations, so the slider will not actually animate. So we have to figure that out, and we always try to make it accessible and do it properly. So just some of the reasons that are going into why we're not doing this immediately. So there's a lot to get right, pretty much. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, now Faton, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm really sorry. Yeah, go to your question. Hello, Jacob. Please add the option in the poster that not all posts are loaded in the background, because if you have a lot of posts, loading takes an extremely long time. I have a website with 1,500 posts. You could develop it like this. For example, if you are on the page one, search results, the 3 page is loaded. If you're on the second page, the page 4 is loaded in the background, and so on and so on. So this is actually a really good question. It's not a question, it's a question and an example. So this refers to how we load these types of posts and how they are loaded and actually enqueued in the front end, and how the entire query works under the hood. And actually, this is one of the reasons why we did it this way. So by default, the post template block does not load more blocks than are visual on the first page. So you probably are all aware of how it works, but I will show it to you anyway. So I need to get rid of this zoom bar that doesn't let me access. So instead of having this post slider variation, I could also go for a post template block. And this post template block now does exactly that. It only shows one post and one tile in here. So let's select at after or at before and bring in a core pagination. So let's take a look. So this does only render one item, one specific post. It's only this one list item inside this entire query loop. And if you want to see the next one, you click on 2, and you can see you're redirected, the page is reloaded, and you actually do have other URL parameters. So this does not let your users go to the next page live. This can be working, in my opinion, on this type of setup, but imagine if I go into this block and actually include something include a pattern in here. Let's just get some hero in here. Doesn't necessarily have to look good, but if I now take a look at this, and if I go to page 2, then the user really lost the position because you're obviously on a new page, or the browser handles it as a new page, query 0 page. And you are not scrolling automatically to that position. And this is kind of confusing to the user. So this is one of the downsides. The core does offer a capability to and works on improving that. So you actually reload it live, but this does not support any third-party blocks or any third-party plugins that include blocks inside the query loop. So it is still really, really limited. So what the post slider now does for you is it actually makes it live. It supports the core pagination now as well. So if I go ahead and save this as a post slider variation, now you can see, yeah, okay, I still have this loop going on. Might get rid of this loop for now. Let's get rid of this, make it a slide, but not loop, not autoplay. So there we go. Now we can go to the next page live. We have to get rid of this core pagination. So the core pagination is something that works with the core block, but for example, let's go into the slider elements and add a pagination. So now I can go to the second page, third page, and the user can do this instantly on the page without losing his position and everything. But the bad thing about it, by default, if you do not filter this down to anything, it will render all the posts inside your page, inside your site. So this could be 1,500, like in your example. And that's actually one of the reasons why we build all this, why we refactored all this, because this was a major problem before. So you now kind of have to decide if you want to, so in the current state, you have to decide if you want to include all the posts, which will be a performance issue. If you have 1,500 posts, and they should all be loaded in the front end. Or you can decide if you want to load only a reduced number of posts. So for example, you have items per page, but you have max page to show, which reduces the number of pages that are shown. By default, this is 0, which says all of the pages are rendered. So I can go make this 6, for example, and now I only display 6 posts. So currently it's not supported to have like unlimited pages and not have any performance downsides. You will have right now. We're planning on doing this, but we couldn't really get to a point. We actually plan to do this in this specific update as well. But the problem we were having is actually reloading like you said, the 4th, 5th, 6th page, because it has a lot of things that are working inside the PHP or SQL query setup and then inside the front end. So actually fetching the post in a lazy way was not entirely working, because we still had to query the posts inside PHP, inside the SQL query, to know how many results are there, to probably know how many pages to display, to properly get all the pagination links right and everything. So loading this lazy was not really reducing all the performance issue, but really not really satisfying result that we got there. So we decided to not add any capability around that. So what we add instead is, if you have a lot of posts, like in the thousands or 100, like 100 is not a lot, but if you by accident, for example, set the page count to 0 and say, okay, just render everything, and render it as a slider, which then renders all the posts, which could be 1,500 pages, then the editor automatically gives you a little notice, hey, you have a lot of posts displayed here. This could lead to performance issues. You might want to customize the max page to show, or all the options you have around here. Because at the end of the day, the front-end user does not need all the 1,500 pages. I'm not sure if any of your users will click on pagination link 1,500. I'm not sure. So reducing the amount of posts actually loaded is not a bad thing, in my opinion. It's something you should always do to be responsible about the performance and the queried post under the hood, actually. But this is something why we refactored the query block I hope, and this got a lot technical now. I'm sorry about that. I hope you can follow me, kind of. But I hope this answers the question. There's a lot of it actually tackles a lot of the issues why we did all this. You can still go and use a post template block, which obviously has then reduced functionality, but this will not have performance issues. This will have performance issues if you really want to display 1,500 posts, which I would not recommend in general. But yeah, lazy loading pages is something we considered, and we were not really satisfied with the results we came up to. So I hope this gives context and answers the question. So let's get back. You probably added context. No. So yeah, I hope this answered the question and gave context why we decided to do this. Yeah, if there are any more questions, feel free to unmute yourself or just type something in the chat. And yeah, I will wait for a couple of minutes. Other than that, I hope everybody learned something new. I hope you can utilize the new capabilities inside the post slider, query block, search features. And actually this feature came, or a lot of the blocks and things we included in this update, we included because customers actually asked us about it and said something like for example, in the chat was asked about, can we have a carousel block? Can we have the option to lazy load pages? Like all of these things were mentioned to us and were asked to us, and we collect them, discuss them. And if more and more customers are mentioning those issues, especially the search capability around the query loop block, then we will implement it. And this is the reason why we actually implemented this feature and build it this way, to get the use cases of our customers right, and yeah, to enable them to build these types of use cases they were telling us about. So if you have any feature requests or ideas for options around that, let me know, let us know. Just write us at support@great.de, and we will give our best to include it and prioritize it accordingly to what customers are wishing or not wishing to get rid of. Yeah, and this is actually one of the features that we entirely prioritize based on the questions from customers. So we will not ignore the questions you're asking us. We will all note it down and discuss it internally. Yes, if there are no more questions right now, then yeah, thank you everybody for attending this webinar. I hope you learned something new. I hope you understand the new features a little bit better. You maybe understand the reasons why we build it the way we build it. Thank you very, very much. I hope you liked it. And with a look outside and the really high temperatures in this office, I wish you all a nice evening. Maybe you jump in a lake or something like that. I will do that probably, because it's 100 degrees in here. Wish you all a good start in the week. Wish you a nice evening, and thank you very much. And we will see you in the next webinar, hopefully. Bye.